definitely has got 40 minutes of inspiring words. He's got treasures that he can share with us, and he's got practical advice that we can walk away from StutterFest and we can put into our everyday life. So, Michael, would you be so kind as to extend your time from 20 minutes to 40 minutes today?
Negotiate, no problem, Tom. I'll have to go into the old brain, but sure, it's still working well.
Thank you, Michael. Welcome to StutterFest.
Thank you, Tom. Well, it's great to be here with you today. That's the first thing. And we'll go through three things. I was only doing one, and that is the three phases of anxiety and how they affect people of verbal difference. But we'll add a few other things into the mix because everything is connected back to your anxiety. Everything. And think about your self talk. Your self talk is anxiety. End of story. All of us human beings have anxiety. You don't need to be a person of verbal difference just to have anxiety. It affects us all. So, what is going on here? Sorry, something happened there. So, I'll share my screen with you first. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good stuff. I get rid of one of those things here now. Are we in business? The stuttering volcano. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. This is what I came up with about my own stutter, and the first version of it was in 2002. It's been adjusted a bit since, but I'll just bring you through it because it's about you. It's not about me. It's my personal experience of what you're looking at, but every point on it affects all of you. Affects people if they work with people who stutter because they need to understand what's inside that stuttering volcano that makes the whole thing erupt. And the three phases of anxiety play a huge, huge part in it. So, how does your stuttering volcano erupt? This was Michael O'Shea in 1999. I'm not going to go into detail about myself, about what I've done and what all this. It'll take up too much time. Some of it you would fall asleep anyway. So, I'll just talk about what really mattered. And what really mattered was reversing almost everything that is in that volcano. So, this was me in 1999. I was 44 years of age. And I started stuttering when I was 4. I got a beating off a nun in school. I didn't speak for 3 months. And then when I went back to school 3 years later, I got another severe beating off of a principal in the school. My own teacher was out for 3 days sick, and we ended up in his class. And I got a beating off of him, and he drew blood. And even though I was only 7 years of age, the message was clear to me at 7 that if I stuttered in front of adults, it would end up in physical pain. So that was the start of avoidance, okay, and holding back and everything else. So if you just look at that and see how much you can relate to your own self in that body movements, spitting, I spitted, struggles, facial contortions, eye blinking. That was what came out through the articulators, through the eyes, through the body, through the hands, through the physical struggle. That's what your listener sees. But they don't see what's inside. They don't see the shame, negative responses going through your head. You're a physical wreck. You know you have a dictionary of feared words, situations, the feelings of guilt, isolation, no self belief, perception, stress, anxiety. There's that word anxiety again, which is related to verbal stress. Irrational mind, constantly being aware of how to avoid, how to hold back so you weren't exposed. We have no fear of speaking. We can speak when we're on our own without stuttering. Most people. Most people can. I don't want to put a percentage on it because there's going to be someday, oh, that's not correct. A certain percentage do stutter when they're on their own, but a vast percentage of people don't. And that's how it is. And stuttering is complex. And do you know why stuttering is complex? Because people are complex. And why are people complex? Because people are unique. They come from different cultures, different backgrounds. All of that is in the mix. But you as an individual need to look after number one, and that's yourself. You need to find your fit. And your fit is out there. If you are determined to change, number one, and you want to change, number two. Now, this is Michael O'Shea now. There's occasional reminders of my historical verbal past, but there's no verbal sensitivity. I'll just get rid of that. That's better. The triggers I had that you saw in the first slide, only if I allowed them to come back in. Awareness is a huge part of my journey. And what is awareness? It's being aware of your internal self. What are you feeling? Because stuttering is all about what is inside your skin and inside your brain. It's influenced by what's outside of you. But the action regarding your stuttering happens internally. When that block comes through the body, it's over. It's over. Always remember this. If you remember nothing from this session, remember this, that stuttering comes through you. It doesn't come to you. It is influenced by what is outside your body. The first point of influence is your brain, which is verbal chaos in the body, verbal panic. Verbal confusion. Think about it. Chaos, panic, and confusion in an instant. Transferred to verbal stress in an instant. Transferred to verbal anxiety by 3. Anticipatory anxiety first. In the moment anxiety second. And post anxiety third. And the last one of them is what the listener sees. But the big important one is verbal tension. Verbal tension first. Tension of the mind leads to tension of the body. That's the process of fear. The most overused word in the stuttering community is the word fear. And look at how much the word fear is used in the world generally. The feeling, fear of falling. Fear of falling is the fear of heights is not the fear of falling, or is the fear of falling. It's not the fear of heights. The fear of drowning is not the fear of water. It's the fear of drowning. And it goes on and on and on. But we have the fear, not of speaking, but of being exposed as people of verbal difference. Right now, there's no verbal sensitivity within me. There's no fear of rejection because I know that none of you are going to reject me. Few of you can be there saying, I wish he'd shut up. He's not making any sense. But I have no fear of that rejection and gone beyond that. Too old for that crack. There's no fuel. There's no triggers. There's no triggers. So if there's no fuel, there's no melting pot. There's no reaction from the verbal mind. There's no response from the verbal mind. The verbal stuttering mind is in siesta time. Nothing is going on. So there's no eruption. Yes, I do have occasional reminders of my past affliction, but there's no eruption. I'm aware of it. I know how to manage it. I don't react to it. I respond to it. And when we're in responsive mode, we're in management mode. So it's management of the outside influence is managed. There's no verbal sensitivity, as I said, and there's no rejection, no verbal fear. I have no fear of speaking to nobody, and I'm not going to go into who I've spoken to, but I have no fear. There's no human being on the face of this planet that I have fear of speaking to. Fear that I'll stutter when I'm speaking to him is what I'm speaking about. Will I prepare well when I need to do a presentation? Of course I will. I'm not stupid. I will not go into a verbal situation that I've never done before cold. I do my research, I do my correct preparation. So therefore, there's no eruption. There's no eruption of my stuttering mind. There's no eruption of my stuttering body. And when I came to putting a name on this presentation, it was like a volcano. There's nothing there to erupt it. Psychological reactions, as well as physical verbal reactions of stammering, need to be addressed. See that word reactions. As soon as the verbal mind goes into reaction mode, we're in trouble because it causes tension, it causes chaos, verbal panic, and verbal confusion. That's what happens in an instant. The whole person needs to be treated to get to the core of how we stutter. The stutter we hear and see is just a symptom of what goes on before we speak. As I said, stuttering comes through you. When it comes through your lips, it's over. It is influenced by your past historical verbal self, your negative experiences, anticipatory anxiety. I'm going to meet Tom. I've never met Tom before. I have anxiety about meeting Tom. I'm afraid I'll stutter in front of Tom. Verbal anxiety. I'll give you an example of how verbal anxiety affected me. When my son was born, he was 5 minutes old, and I had verbal anxiety about how to avoid his wedding speech 24 years later. The mindset and mentality of a stutterer. That's how powerful anticipatory anxiety is. Think about your own self, presentations in college, job interviews, your first date, you name it. You're on the line on the basketball court and the coach is not putting you on, and you know you're better than the players that are on the court or the pitch. Are you going to approach the course or the coach and stand up for yourself? No, you're not, because you're afraid you will be exposed as a person of verbal difference. That's the effect it has on us. The stutter we hear and see is just a symptom of what goes on before we speak. Anticipatory anxiety. The other form of anxiety is in the moment anxiety, that we become overwhelmed. I've seen people become overwhelmed where they nearly passed out because they were so overwhelmed mentally by being stuck in that block. You could see their physical form in their bodies change, tension from their toes to the top of their head. Their faces nearly exploding, where they pass out, they can't even take in a proper breath. We need to understand our own personal head game of stuttering. You are the world's expert on you. Nobody else. There's no academic who's an expert on you in the moment, every day of your life. They're not with you. The books you read, you don't have them in your pocket. The advice you've given, you have it in your head. If you're overwhelmed by anxiety, you forget everything. You just want to get out of that moment. That is in the moment anxiety. And then we have post anxiety, where we're dwelling on it for so long. What was the reason I ever went to do my work on my verbal communication? I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. And the word was pain. I had enough of the pain of stuttering, and the pain climaxed when I could not say goodbye to my grandmother on her deathbed. That's pain. And that's the result of stuttering. Negative thought processes generate negative feelings, which generate negative physical reactions. That tension. Okay, but it's the thought processes. I've stuttered here, I've done it before. This goes on. And unless we're able to manage that and bring it to a comfortable stage where we are in charge, I call it you're the driver of your own verbal bus. Nobody is driving your world, only you, nobody else. If you think that somebody's going to walk up in the street anywhere, I'm talking academics or anybody else in the world, and say to me, Michael, I heard you're working on your speech. Would you like to say your name with good technique? Has that ever happened to anybody? No, it hasn't. And I'll tell you, it never will, because I'll tell you, the reality of stuttering is it is you versus you every day. You need to be able to look after yourself. Help and support, fantastic, it's out there, but we need to go to it. We need to go to it. It's not going to come to us. It's not going to come to us. Deep inside the volcano lives verbal fear, your fear. It leaves your shame, your feared words, your feared sound situations, your emotions, your vulnerabilities, your historical verbal self memories, including the negative mental reactions, negative physical experiences, and all that we mentally attach to stuttering. The only thing that saved me from all of that is this overcompensation in everything I done from the time I got that beating at 7 years of age from the principal in school. The message was that if I wasn't as good, or the feeling I had that if I wasn't as good as anybody else or better, I did not feel normal. Because did I ever feel normal as a stutterer? No way. Forget it. And I would have people coming to me every day as parents with their children, oh, sure, he only stutters a little bit, it doesn't matter. Depending on the age of the child, I'd ask the parent out straight, how do you know it doesn't matter? Have you ever asked your child to tell you it doesn't matter? So it's their perception or it's their denial that it matters. Stuttering is the elephant in the room, almost every room. And we need to be able to manage that and manage our way through it. Negative physical experiences, all that we mentioned, mentally attached to stuttering. It's all there. There are deep-seated reservoirs of negative verbal speaking experiences to be dealt with to manage our challenge with stuttering. And this takes your courage, your knowledge, your dedication to application, your perseverance, your patience, and more importantly, support. I would not be here speaking to you like this without the support of fantastic people. A lot of them are on the screen. And Jane Fraser, your father, was one of them. I had the opportunity to meet that man once in Persephone in New York at a conference, and we had a conversation for a half an hour, and he opened my mind, as did John Harrison. The people I looked for in the world were the people who made sense. The people who are making a living and charging for stuttering never made sense to me, because they looked at the clock. They looked at the appointment book. You are only a client. The people that you will work with who know stuttering, you will know it, you will feel it by the way they express themselves and they talk about it and they talk their experience, because they know what it's like from the inside out. And remember, your stuttering comes from the inside out. So I think that's the end of the slide. No, it's not. Length of time the stuttering volcano lies dormant depends on everyone's willingness to change their personal status quo from negative reactions to empowering responses. Again, those people on the screen, I've seen them coming where they started their journey. I've seen the transformations that they have made. And once you decide that you're going to change and that you want to change, that is the first step. You're 50% of the way when you make that decision. But if that decision includes that you're going on a pity journey where you want people to pity you and that's going to help you long term, forget it. Forget it. You will join a club. You will join a club of pity. You need support. You need people who are straight with you, who will support you. It doesn't matter if you stutter. It doesn't matter if you stutter. There is no law, there is no commandment in the world that says, thou shalt not stutter. And if there is, I'd like to see it. Thou shalt not stutter. You are free to stutter for the rest of your life if it is your decision. If it is your decision that that is the way you want to go. But if you want to go and you want to get help and support, it's there. Why are we all here today? Why did all the people who put in the fantastic work and effort to put on this for 20 hours non-stop? Why did they do it? Because there's passionate people out there who want to help and support people. And if you have a passion for something, nothing gets in your way. Nothing. So there is a need to track down what makes your stuttering erupt. And you know it because you are the expert on you. Only you will know this. You are the expert. It takes time, patience, and experimentation to find and apply your personal strategies and applications. It is not the one fit that will fit everybody, but they are commonalities. We know the power that is in resisting time pressure. We know the power that if we do resist time pressure, we do create a space where we know how to center ourselves. How do we feel? What can we change in this space? And by practicing and knowing how to do that, everything starts to change. But as long as we maintain the status quo of our verbal communication, as long as we maintain the status quo of our mindset, that's not learning new knowledge. Read books, listen to people, and write. Keep a journal every day. I started keeping a journal in 1999, and my eighth journal. And there isn't a day that goes by that I miss writing in that journal. I could even show you what I wrote this morning. I have it here. Emotionally, we hold back. For some, it is like a pressure cooker in our heads. Think about holding back, what Tom said a few minutes ago, holding back. Think about yourself. Is it a pressure cooker in your head waiting for somebody just to lift the lid? Is that part of your life? What I also wrote was stuttering consequences sometimes, and this is me, I was talking about me here. Stuttering consequences sometimes makes us emotionally unavailable for the people we really care for and love. Think about that. There was times when I wasn't emotionally available for my family. Emotionally, I wasn't available for my grandmother, and she was a trigger. Because if nature took its course, I knew my parents were going to pass before me. And I didn't ever want to experience that emotional pain ever again. And I have hundreds of people to thank that that didn't happen, because the world out there was prepared to accommodate me because I went looking for it. I didn't stand back and wait for the world to come to me and have pity on me. I didn't want to feel that pain again. And the last one wrote this morning, you have control and management of what you are verbally going to do next. So, what are we going to do verbally next? And after that, next, what is your next? And your next? And that is your decision for the rest of your life. And who you want to be and what you want to be is your decision. So, what's next? And your next. Only treating the articulator struggles. And we all know what the articulator struggle is, but we don't look at what's inside. It's the whole package of how you feel. There is a need to go to the core and stop the lava from erupting to get to the core of the problem. Once the reservoir is hot and melting away, increasing attention on articulator struggle will never be adequate. Because if we focus on articulator struggle, remember, the stutter has already happened. We don't need to speak to stutter. Once anticipatory anxiety is involved, you're thinking about stuttering. I was talking to Jane Fraser last week and I stuttered. I'll stutter when I'm speaking to her next week. That's anticipatory anxiety. And you're not stuttering, you're stuttering in your head. So that's where it starts. And asking yourself why I stutter or stammer only gives you reasons. Asking yourself how gives you structure. You need to go to the structure. You need to go to the core of your volcano. And what was my core in that volcano that you saw? There was two things in the core. Number one, sensitivity. And the number two was rejection. And everybody, when I do talks at universities and so on, they talk about my rejection. Those people are going to be future speech therapists and pathologists, and they're talking about my rejection. They don't realize how much fear I had about the rejection of the person I was with. So we'll just say I was speaking to one of you in your own hometown, or having a cup of coffee, and a friend of yours and an acquaintance of yours walked into the restaurant and walked over. Now, this was before I'd done anything with my speech. And they said to me, "Where are you from?" Guaranteed I wouldn't be able to say a word. What was the fear of rejection in that moment? It wasn't that they'd reject me, it was they'd reject the person I was with because they were hanging around with somebody who couldn't even say his name or where he was from. So think about it. Asking yourself why I stammer only gives you reasons. Asking yourself how it gives you structure. We need to go to the core. That's where the structure is. To remove stuttering from your verbal communication, you need to remove its structure. You need to dissolve it. You don't need to declare war on it. Once you declare war on yourself, you're creating tension. Even thinking about it, you're creating tension. You need to dissolve it. You need to embrace your stutter. You are a person. I am a person of verbal difference. I stutter. I'm not fixed or I'm not cured. For I realize there's nothing to fix or there's nothing to cure. But there is knowledge to learn, there's knowledge to apply, and there's support to be got and given. That is a fact. That's not a myth. And that is structure. But declaring war and expecting outside forces to come in and fix you, it's not going to happen. I deal with people on a daily basis regarding substance abuse, and some of them use substance abuse to manage their suffering. It's a sad world. It's a sad world, believe me. But they're part of our world. They're part of our community. Are we to reject them because that's the course that they took? Are you passionate about, or are you nitpicking who you're going to help and support? Are you nitpicking that you'll only help support people who stutter who'll pay you? Or are you passionate that you listen and you try and help as many people as you can? So to remove stuttering from your verbal communication, you need to remove its structure. You need to dissolve it. Thank you for listening to me. I hope I didn't put any of you to sleep. And if anybody has any questions, I don't know how much time is left, Tom, so I'm sure you'll tell me. And that's about it. So if there's any questions and answers, I'll answer them. If you have any comments or questions, please be free. So I'll just close this and we can get back to what the main room. So any questions? Any
Michael, can I
comments?
ask a question
Yes,
for
Robert.
Robert O'Brien? You've got about 7 minutes, just so you know.
All right.
Could you speak a little bit? Obviously, everybody is dealing with their own speech, and there's a focus on our own recovery. And just tying into what Ryan had shared, like picking himself up after failing, there's a lot of inner work there. But could you talk a little bit about how helping other people has helped you grow in your own knowledge and your own understanding around your speech, and then how giving back to others can really help us in our own growth after we've sort of worked on ourselves, if like that makes sense as a
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's an excellent one. And it's a talk I done about it only a few weeks ago. And I'll go back to that talk it was very important for me as I progressed forward. It was my personal burden with stuttering. As I told you, I kept a journal. Now I can go back to the day I started that journal. So if you ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I will tell you, Robert, right now I can't formulate an answer, but give me a day and I'll get back to you. And I'll go back to where I was in that journal back 5 years ago or 10 years ago. The answer will be there because that's part of the process. All of us go through the same process. We live differently. But stuttering, so I learned a lot about stuttering, but I learned what was at the base of it. For me, it was my fear-based verbal experiences, which were all negative as a child. Not being asked a question in school, blah, 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 happens us all. And we feel different. That's where I came up with the term, the feeling of difference. Because when I meet somebody who stutters for the first time and I listen to them, I do no talking. I leave them talk until they stop. And I don't judge nobody. Doesn't matter where you come from, what you've done, doesn't matter. You're a human being to me. And when I ask them the question, and I say to you, Robert, when was the first time that you noticed that you were different? Every one of them go back to school. They go back to that feeling of difference, that feeling of isolation, where the teacher is not inclusive. The mother and father or grandmother are coming into the school telling the teachers not to ask them a question in school. That is the feeling. My own feeling was, why did I get one half day, one Thursday of every month to go to speech therapy? And my sister didn't. Neither did anybody else in the school. Feeling of difference. So, and all of us will have ups and downs. I fell down more times than I can remember. I came home frustrated more times, but I never took it out on nobody. I'd have my dinner and I'd go for a walk and I'd sort it out. And that's why it was always me versus me. And the people that I have met around the world who've made it, they'll tell you the same thing. They realized it was them versus themselves. They needed to learn what to do and to apply it bit by bit. Because all of us, if you can speak to yourself without stuttering, there is nothing wrong, physically wrong with your vocal mechanism. Nothing. So you're past the negative experiences. And I've seen it in you. I met you the first time that you started working on your speech. Look at the transformations. And I've worked with thousands of people. None of them are cured. None of them are fixed. Or there's nothing to fix or there's nothing to cure. But there's something that we need to work on, that we can manage it very, very well. So I hope that answers the question. But there's help out there. Doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, there's people out there who will give you the advice. Don't ever take advice and say, oh no, that won't work. Just take it in. Try it out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, just park it. But share that advice with somebody else because it may be their fit. Maybe their fit.